G'day guys, David here from the Zyme Zone. Just want to talk to you today about when you go out and choose the loan structure or the loan repayment options for your loan. And if you get it wrong, it can literally add years and years and years to your repayments and also give you less options in the future and really feel like you're a slave to the mortgage. So you really do need to think about it really seriously before you go in to maybe what you think is normal or typical options and steps, and think about what consequences there could be in the future. So I'm going to go through this video and go through the different options you have, give you a bit of the pros and cons, so hopefully by the end of it, when you go and talk to a broker, ideally a broker is going to give you more choice, or a bank, you're going to go in there armed with at least understanding and being educated, and then have a bit of a plan in place to know which is best going to suit you. So let's start with number one. The one, if you're going out to buy your own home, that most people start with is principal and interest, and it's variable. Now, why do people choose principal interest? Well, basically because banks say to them that they have to use principal and interest if they want the home. That's the standard repayment. It's considered a bad debt, and your goal is to repay that debt over the period of 25 to 30 years. Now, what's the con on that? The repayments are higher, so more cash required, so more money going out of your pocket. And if it's variable, you've obviously got a level of risk there. If interest rates change, that the repayments could be higher. So that's but that's generally the one that most people choose. When I think of the cons think of the pros of that, well, obviously you're going to be putting more money into the loan, which means your chance of paying down the debt is going to be better than probably a lot of the other options. But remember, for the first period of your loan, you're mainly just paying interest, and you've got to think about what else you could be doing with that money. But that's what the banks are going to say. You're paying off the bad debt, and unless you've got a high income, obviously that can take a long time. So the second option is to do principal and interest, but then maybe look at the option of fixing. Now, what's good about fixing? Generally speaking, the rate may be lower. Now, when I started off in this game, we went and fixed at 5.89% because we'd heard that was the lowest rate that it has ever been since the Second World War. Guess what? Interest rates are now going down to as low as 2.9. So, in that time they dropped down as well. So fixing over a long period of time actually got us in trouble. The big issue then is if we wanted to get any equity out to do a renovation or anything else and break that loan early or go to a different bank, the cost for getting out of the loan, the break costs were tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So we couldn't actually get the money out. So we had massive opportunity costs because we couldn't actually get the money out of the loan at the time we wanted, because that bank limiters would have to break the loan. So again, what's the positive of that? It gives you security in regard to your repayments. It gives you certainty around what money is going out. But really, this is the option you're taking if you just want to have that level of understanding your cash flow, and all you want to do is just have your home, pay it off, and know that that's pretty much the sum of it. Now, when we go down a little bit lower, we've got other options. Now, sometimes the banks may offer it up, and this changes, it goes in cycles. Most banks are going to say P&I, but in many cases, depending on banking, it's always based on supply and demand. You can get interest only, and interest only and variable. With interest only, remember, you're only paying the interest component of the loan, not the principal, so your actually cash flow is increased because there's less money going out of your pocket. Now, the downside is the loan is actually not going down as fast, but if you want to, you could go and make that extra principal repayment, but instead of sticking it into the loan in the bank, because once you pay it into the loan, you can't get it back. So if something changed in your life, you had a baby, had an accident, got sick, you can't just go and pull the funds out. But if you made principal and interest repayments, paid the interest, but put the principal in your offset account, then if anything went wrong, you've actually got a buffer sitting there to actually, cover you in your worst case scenario. It gives you a good sleep at night factor. On the other side here, of course, variable still leaves you open to the fact that the rate could go up. So, of course, you've got to look at your circumstances, look at your buffers, and also consider what your plan and your strategies are as well going forward. If you're going to buy a business, if you're going to buy shares, if you're going to buy investments, having other funds available is quite crucial. Now, the other factor that is obviously here is you can get interest only and get fixed. Now, again, positives, or the cons is fixed, it's locked in. Again, can't get your hands on the money, you can't get out of the loan. But quite often at the moment, you can get a lower rate. So again, the pro is the lower rate, but obviously your cash is fixed. It's tied in, you can't get it out. But you understand your cash flow. So again, gives you that security and sense of well-being there as well. Now, this is where you got to think about it. If your strategy is only your home, then you're probably going to go to principal and interest if you're on a good income, and if it's fixed at the moment, you know what your cash flow is, and if the rate's lower, you'll probably choose that option. If you're someone who maybe is going out there to buy your first home and you're using that as a stepping stone, and then later on you want to go and do something else, well, you want access to your funds and you don't want to actually be tying it up for as long. So again, my choice would be, I'd always go out there and do interest only and stick the extra cash in the buffer. Now here's my little disclaimer. In the last 1 or 2 years, the banks have actually been penalising the interest only and putting the rate up higher, maybe around 4%, and having the rate down on your home less. So you need to compare those two things to see which is going to be the best for you. But I like the idea of having my flexibility. I still like the idea of putting extra cash in, but I want to put it into my buffer, my offset account, not pay it to the bank. So if something goes wrong, I can get my hands on it. Another variation on the theme is I also wouldn't mind the option of interest only and fixed if I knew there was going to be some major life changes coming. Like some of my clients are having babies and they need to plan, so they want to have interest only on fixed. So it's better for their cash flow and they can get the lowest rate at the time, but they would only do it for 1 to 2 years because a lot can change in 3 to 5. So I would never fix myself personally for longer than that. So what's the whole theme here? The reality is there isn't a right or wrong thing to do, but it very much does come down to what your plan is, what your strategy is, and what you're trying to do now and into the future. But you need to think about this very, very clearly at the beginning. Remember, it's cycling all the time. Rates are changing. Banks are trying to get business. That they've made it hard. The last few years are opening up because the economy is bad. They want more business, so they're changing all the time. And remember, on all these things, you can ask the question. There is no fixed rule. It's all about getting business for the banks that's commercial. They may say something is not possible, but the reality is, if they think you're going to leave, they might turn around and change that rule. Anyway, that's a bit of a download. Hopefully it gives you some insights to just get out there and plan. We sit down and obviously educate people around this, but we're not brokers, so we can't give advice. But of course, if we educate people so when they go to the banks and brokers, that helps them a lot in the future. Anyway, guys, it's David from the Xylem Zone. Hopefully that helps you a bit. Finance is certainly the key to everything you do if you're going out there and buying a home and setting yourself up in the future. And hopefully knowing this is going to help you a bit more. Ciao for now.